Welcome to the Stephen Mansfield Podcast.
Welcome to the Stephen Mansfield Podcast. Great to have you with me. I want to do something that's going to surprise quite a few of you, I'm sure. I'm going to compliment Donald Trump in this podcast. Now, that shouldn't be that surprising. I have often said in this podcast that I am right of center, that I'm proud of a lot of the people in the Trump administration, but I've also expressed my concerns about Trump's manner, about his lack of knowledge, about his personal immorality, and so I am mixed on Donald Trump. That is an appropriately American response to this president. His administration will hopefully do more good things, but we also will be dealing with the fallout from his personality and manner, and I think it's fair to say immorality. I'm pretty much tired of talking about strippers myself, and I think also that we are going to be paying, I think, for a long time in American history for the overly tight marriage between religion and politics in this administration. And I've talked about all of that. But what I want to do now is point out something that Donald Trump is doing that is serving America well. And that is, what causes nations and what causes citizens to lose confidence in governments or in a government is when they do not keep their word, is when they do not stand up to their principles, is when they do not go to war, go to battle, take the fight to Congress, take the battle to the American people along certain clear lines. And that has been a curse of American politics. I mean, politicians aren't exactly known for courage for the most part. Some are stellar examples of courage, but they're not known for courage. They tend to do what's politically acceptable. They tend to have their fingers in the air a great deal to see which way the wind is blowing. And so as a result, you don't have that kind of resolve that brings respect. You don't have it internationally. You don't have it amongst the American people. But recently, Donald Trump and his administration have done some things that, regardless of whether you like them or not, are simply extensions of prior commitments that were not fulfilled. And so, whether you like them or not, they are at least elevating the honor, the esteem, the regard in which American government is held by both foreign nationals, foreign nations, and by the American people. For example, moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem recently. Now, this is controversial, and some of you are listening are some of my dear Muslim friends and are from Middle Eastern countries, and you may be furious about this. And many of you listening are American evangelicals, and you are thrilled about this. But let me just, without even saying yes, no, right, wrong, let me just tell you how it works as an extension of American policy. The fact is that presidents for decades have been saying this is what ought to happen, that every nation in the world has the right to choose its own capital, that Israel is a nation recognized by the United States and by the nations in 1948. It's a member of the United Nations. It is a fully independent nation, and therefore it ought to have the authority to choose its own embassy. Presidents, American presidents, have been saying that for years. Finally, Donald Trump, and this may be the blessed side of his impatience, the blessed side of his disregard for dithering and lack of action, he said, we're going to do it. We're going to move it. Now, I'm not sure he had deep religious and theological reasons for that. I'm sure some of the evangelicals around him spoke to him in those terms. But I think what bothered him most is that American presidents had been promising this for years. He's got Jews in his own family. He's close to Israel. He cares about Israel. He likes Prime Minister Netanyahu. He has an affinity for the Jewish people as a long-term resident of New York. And this is a man who simply said, let's not mess around anymore. Let's get this thing moved. This is part of validating Israel as a nation. This is part of America keeping its word. This is part of American presidents no longer being cowards. And this is the right thing to do. Boom, done. Now, some of you listening to this don't like what I'm saying because you don't like the move. Some of you are thrilled by it. But the point I'm making right now is that American government, American presidents, American leaders either need to give their word and do it, or cancel their commitments. But to leave an unfulfilled commitment for decades out of fear of an enemy, out of fear of terrorism, out of fear of opposition is silly. There's nothing that is dismissive of Palestinians to allow Israel, a nation that encompasses Jerusalem, to put its capital there. And all of you know that while I love Israel and believe in Israel, I am also very strongly active in the Arab world. I guest lecture at a Saudi university. I'm the furthest thing from anti-Arab. In fact, I'm quite the opposite. I'm in favor of both. That's not just cowardice. That is exactly where my theology, my faith, my understanding of history, and my commitments stand. So I am both a man who loves Israel and a man who is adjunct faculty at a Saudi university. I am both a man who supports Israel and a man who is a consultant to the Kurds in Iraqi Kurdistan. So not anti-Muslim, not anti-Arab at all, but thankful that America has fulfilled its commitments. Let's talk about another situation. Recently, the Trump administration has taken the position that Title 10, an act called Title 10, forbids the use of federal funds for the funding of abortion and forbids organizations that provide family planning from including abortion in those services on the basis of federal funding. Well, this has been around since the Nixon administration. This has been around literally since the Nixon administration. It's connected to a thing called the Hyde Amendment, an amendment proposed by Senator Henry Hyde of Illinois. And the Hyde Amendment forbade the use of federal funds for abortion. So these two themes, these two acts, these two amendments have been around since the early 1970s. But the problem is there's a lot of dithering, and there's a lot of cowardice, and there's a lot of fear of Planned Parenthood and its political clout. And so people often have not insisted that federal funds not go to fund abortion. And this is absolutely what our laws maintain. So what happens is people become cynical. Well, that's what the law says, but nobody's going to have the courage to stand by it. And this is part of what is causing a real loss of credibility and real devastation. Again, the Trump administration, yes, I'm sure, not only pro-life at its core, but very much influenced by evangelicals, and Donald Trump's, as we all know, has newly come to a pro-life position in maybe the recent decade or so. Wasn't that long ago. He was taking exactly the opposite stand on the Larry King show, but now he's become pro-life, and he's in typical Donald Trump style. When he believes in something, he almost overcommits to it. So he's making speeches at the right places and proclaiming a pro-life vision, and his administration is now essentially defunding Planned Parenthood, because it's saying, look, if you give federal fund to an organization that provides abortion for family planning, those funds are fungible. Those funds are interchangeable. You can't say, well, I'm only funding one office and not funding the one right down the hall from it. I'm only funding one stethoscope, but not the other stethoscope. I'm only funding one examination table, but not the other one. These funds are fungible. They're funding the same thing. So the Trump administration is sounding all neo-Nazi kind of pro-life, and of course I am pro-life, so I'm aiming that humorously. Many people are talking like, hey, this is a bunch of goose-stepping anti-abortioners. All they're doing is saying we are going to be consistent with American governmental policies that have been around for almost 50 years. Just people didn't have, in many cases, the courage to hold the line. Now, President George W. Bush did, and others have, but few have in those years. And yet both of these acts, Title 10 and the Hyde Amendment, have been around since the Nixon administration. He's the one who signed the Hyde Amendment into law. So all of this to say that what we have to be aware of is not just I'm for it, I'm against it. That certainly is our right as American citizens. It's certainly the way government works. I understand that. But sometimes we have to look at the longstanding commitments our government has made and say, are we going to live up to those things or not? And believe me, foreign countries are watching. I work a lot internationally. I sit a lot with foreign heads of state. And I'm telling you, our stock goes up when we are consistent with our words and commitments. And when we're not, For example, the disastrous mistreatment of this administration, by the way, let me now be negative for a moment about the Trump administration. The disastrous mistreatment of the Kurds is losing us stock in the Middle East, losing us stock in Germany, because Germany is very much pro-Kurd, losing us stock in the northern part of Iraq, losing us stock elsewhere. The fact that we sat by and let the Assad regime in Syria gas its own citizens, and we didn't do very much, etc., etc. That kind of thing loses us stock, and it emboldens our enemies because they say, you know what, you blow up their buildings, they're not going to care. You attack their allies, they're not going to care. Don't worry about America. It's a sleeping giant. It's going to stay asleep. It's actually drunk on its own prosperity and wealth. But when we do what we say we're going to do, even if these are decades-old commitments, the world stands up and takes notice. The world's taking notice of the shift of embassy. Whether you believe it's right or not, it's raising American stock in the world. And the same with the abortion issue. These were long-standing commitments, on the books, active American law, many federal policies informed by them, but sometimes just sheer cowardice kept our legislators from enacting them, from enforcing them, and from issuing punishments for the violation of them. But the Trump administration has stepped up. This is the good side of Donald Trump. And again, I'll say, I didn't vote for him, and I'm just as likely in my next podcast to take on some area of disastrous leadership in the Trump administration, particularly when it comes to the Kurds and the Middle East. But right now, several moves have been made that are increasing American stock in the world, that are raising the integrity of American government, that are sending the signal throughout the bureaucracy we're going to be good to our word, and that are actually fulfilling campaign promises by Donald Trump. Of course, I thought his campaign, as I think many of you know, was bloody and insulting and divisive in American history, but still something good is happening in the midst of all of that, and that is that this administration is helping America keep its word at home and abroad, and that's something we've needed for a long time.
Stephen Mansfield is a New York Times best-selling author, a popular speaker, and a frequent faith and culture commentator on Fox and CNN. His groundbreaking books on faith and society include The Faith of George W. Bush, The Search for God in Guinness, Mansfield's Book of Manly Men, and Lincoln's Battle with God. Learn more at stephenmansfield.tv.